In a civilized and cultivated country, wild animals only continue to exist at all when preserved by sportsmen. The excellent people who protest against all hunting and consider sportsmen as the enemies of wildlife are ignorant of the fact that, in reality, the genuine sportsman is by all odds the most important factor in keeping the larger and more valuable wild creatures from total extermination. Theodore Roosevelt. All right, y'all, welcome to another episode of the Wild Initiative Conservation Coffee Break. Today, you are getting a special 2-for-1 episode because I am with Jared Wiklund of Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. Jared, thank you for hopping on the line with me today.
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
So why don't you, to start out, just give us a quick kind of overview of what Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever is and really what you do with both organizations.
Yeah, no problem. So Pheasants Forever is the nation's leading upland habitat conservation group. We were initiated in 1982 when a group of pheasant hunters saw the connection between upland habitat loss and declining pheasant populations. And at that time, an organization dedicated to wildlife habitat conservation was needed. And that's how Pheasants Forever was formed. And our mission work quickly garnered ourselves a reputation as the habitat organization. And that's a tagline that we proudly use to this day. At the beginning of our roots, we had a board member, staffer named Dennis Anderson, who actually still writes for the Star Tribune here in Minnesota. And he wrote an article. It was a really bad winter that year, and he wrote an article with a picture that was pretty graphic of a couple pheasants freezing on the side of the road. And he talked about, have you ever witnessed a pheasant freezing in the middle of winter with no habitat to guard it from the elements? And that specific editorial really caught fire with a lot of people, and they called in and said, "Listen, we want to do something about it." So that's how Pheasants Forever was started. It was started in a garage here in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and grew since that time. We've got 137,000 members right now. We're in just about every state in the United States, and we've got local chapters from some of those members, per county, that start local groups or chapters, and they fundraise. They hold a membership fundraising banquet once per year, sometimes more, and they use those funds. They have 100% decision-making control of how to spend those funds, and they use it to do our mission work, to improve habitat of pheasants, quail, and other wildlife on the landscape. And a similar story in 2005, people saw the loss of quail habitat and how quail populations had declined by about 80%, since the early 1980s, and said they wanted to do something about it. So that's our sister organization, Quail Forever, located mostly kind of in quail country, the southeast and the southern Great Plains.
So what are some of maybe the top line or the most urgent issues that these two organizations are currently tackling in North America?
Yeah, so the big one, the overarching one, would be grassland loss, and specifically one of the things that we really like to work on is called CRP, or the Conservation Reserve Program. And for listeners that might not know what that is, the Conservation Reserve Program is issued by the United States Department of Agriculture and the Farm Service Agency, and it pays landowners, farmers, to take some of their land out of production for purposes of wildlife habitat, water quality, and soil health, and it pays them a stipend to put grass or other types of plantings, vegetation on those acres. And we focus a lot on CRP. It's the Cadillac of pheasant habitat and quail habitat, is what I like to say. We had about 38 million acres back in 2007 and 2008, and that corresponded with modern day highs for pheasant harvest in a lot of different states, and quail too. Since that time, we've lost 14 million acres, or a grassland about the size of Lake Michigan. And anytime you take that much grass off the landscape, upland bird upland bird populations are going to respond negatively to that. So we're working on the Conservation Reserve Program right now. They've got an open sign up where we've got biologists all throughout the country helping people sign up for that particular program. There's about 8 million acres that are available for enrollment here, and we're hoping to get those acres on the way back up. And then with that, we also focus on access. So we just surpassed, Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever just surpassed about 201,000 acres of public land acquisitions that we've been a part of. We're extremely proud of that. If you draw a line around just the outside of those acres, it would take you all the way from the Canadian border all the way down to the U.S.-Mexico border, and that's just the outside of those acres. So we're extremely proud of that. Providing access is one of the reasons why people become members of Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, and we're really proud of the work that we do in partnering with state agencies and federal agencies and other nonprofits to make sure that we're providing places for people to go and recreate. And it could be bird hunting, and there's a lot of deer and other wildlife on these properties as well. We do a lot for waterfowl with some of the waterfowl production areas that we purchase, but it's also great for songbirds and pollinators and all those other creatures out there that deserve recognition as well.
That's fantastic. So if folks wanted to get involved, what's the best way for them to get involved? And also, where can people find Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever online?
Yeah. So, if you want to learn a little bit more about the organizations and kind of some of the work that we've done, great conservation, hunting, articles online, habitat how-tos, you can go to pheasantsforever.org or quailforever.org. And if you're looking to get involved, probably one of the easiest ways, if you go to either one of those home pages, down below the top scroller, you'll find a place where it says find a chapter. You can click on that. You can click on that link and put in your zip code, and you can try to find the nearest chapter to your location. There'll be a phone number there. You can call them and get involved. If you are interested in habitat conservation projects, both on public and private lands, getting youth outside, getting youth involved. Maybe it's a learn to hunt event. Maybe we just got done with a huge veterans hunt lately here in the state of Ohio, probably one of our biggest in the nation. There's a lot of different rewarding things you can do as part of a Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever chapter, and we're here to help. And in certain places, especially on the West Coast, we're really starting to pick up steam with new chapter starts. So if folks are interested in possibly starting a chapter in their own communities, if they don't have one, that's a really great option, and it only takes a few dedicated members or dedicated outdoorsmen and women to get a chapter going in your specific area.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on with me, talk a little bit about Pheasants and Quail Forever. Y'all make sure you head on over to the conservation page. That's thewildinitiative.com/conservation. You can either scroll down, look for the Pheasants Forever or Quail Forever logos, or do a search in the search bar there. Get links to all of the websites and socials and take a look at this episode. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Thanks for having me, Sam. Appreciate it.